What is up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. Today we are here at Lake Julian Disc Golf Course for another Plastic Conspiracies, and this one we're again looking at House of Discs, again looking at dynamic discs specifically, and this time we're not looking at the general, even though, I mean, I did bring it out because I've got it for 17 bucks. I'm going to throw it until I lose it. But the Raider is oftentimes said to be the destroyer replica from dynamic discs, and so the Raider is numbered 13, so one speed faster. Rim size is, you know, it is what it is, 13.5, negative 0.53, and with dynamic being that numbering system that is, generally speaking, a little bit less stable, this might actually fly like a destroyer. So I have this Ricky Wysocki Raider, which is in the Lucid X Chameleon plastic, which is very similar to Discmania Meta plastic. So we also have this Meta Horizon Sea Line Cloud Breaker. We have the General, brought a couple of destroyers. Let's go ahead and see if the Dynamic Discs Raider is anywhere close to a destroyer. And I say destroyer, even though everybody is trying to replicate the destroyer, not very many people are able to replicate it properly. But I will note something as far as profile goes with the Raider that I didn't see on the General. So the General is very smooth, controlled, gradual, all the way up onto the dome. There's really no ledges or ridges or anything. And, you know, with a destroyer, especially like a pop top one, you're gonna see that center dome and almost a flat spot here. But on the Raider, it's a little bit different. So on the Raider, you almost have this little flat spot, and then it goes up at the top, and then it goes flat again before it starts its dome. It's like a little extra lip. So while I think that is going to have the stability and the glide better than a disc like the Cloud Breaker, which actually this one has just the tiniest bit of that effect right there, or the General, you might see it with something that is, well, it's got ridges in it. So we're gonna go ahead and just throw these three to start off. Long pad here, gonna throw just a flat shot, it's a tail crosswind. Gonna go Cloud Breaker, General, and then Raider. Just a little bit of anhyzer. It held that a long ways. That is not the most overstable DD3 I've ever thrown, but also the DD3 just generally doesn't have the stability that I want from this slot, which is why I kind of moved away from the DD3, moved on towards the destroyers. Let's see how that DD3 flies compared to this General. Not really too much to that flight. It's just really, really, really straight and then a consistent fade. This Raider has both more dome and I think it's going to be more stable. Well, I don't know about more stable, possibly more torque resistant than the General because of the weird lip ridges. Well, that just held over, didn't it? That dome definitely held it over. So, interesting. I expected the Raider to be more stable than that, but I guess if we are expecting destroyer flight, then that is somewhat destroyer flight because I did throw it on an anhyzer. We're gonna keep throwing these three Maybe not L3 on every hole, just so I can kind of pitch count myself. But we're gonna keep throwing the Raider, keep throwing the General, and then I want to kind of splice in some of the destroyers I've got and see if those have more accuracy. Of the destroyers I currently own, this is the most like a General disc. There is the tiniest bit of a little lip there. So we're gonna see if this Henna Bloomer's destroyer is anything similar to the Raider or the General. We're gonna throw a flat forehand. This is the straightest of my destroyers. It doesn't really turn too much, and it doesn't really fade super hard. So I think this one will fly very similar to this General. But let's see, we're gonna go Raider first this time. Nice little forehand, maybe a touch of hyzer. I just burned. Good tree though. What happened there? Let's go General. Yeah, that's what I expected to happen with the Raider. But that's what we got with the General. The General isn't... The General says it's an 04. It's not an 04. It's like an 03, maybe an 02.5. But it doesn't really like to flip unless you're barreling it nose down into headwinds. It just kind of likes to hold its angle. So in that respect, I think the General is probably a little bit closer to the Venom from Discraft or the Force from Discraft, not necessarily to a destroyer or a PD2. Yeah, that's all right. Gotta go find a Raider. It did not make it to the water, so we're still good on the testing purposes of the disc. But that kind of responded a little bit more like I expected the Cloudbreaker to respond, where it's just not that stable. I expected it to be more stable than it is because of those like weird lips, because of the weird shape. I expected it to be a little bit more stable, but I think when you make a disc that bladed, it's going to hold its speed and it's going to go a little bit faster. So the fact that the Destroyer, the PD2, all those it's a much more blunt edge further out onto the rim. So they're just going to they seem to hold that integrity, that stability, that not want to turn over towards the water better than most other discs do. So this is something I continue to talk about in the PDs, the PD2s, the Destroyers, is that as this stays more blunt further out towards the edge, even though the parting line is down here, it's mimicking a more overstable disc. So I guess the question is, how far out on the rim does that need to be? Because you can see that the amount of downward turn on the Destroyer is a lot less than the Enforcer. Let's go ahead and throw same order as last hole, Enforcer, General, and then Destroyer. I guess it might have been a slightly different order. I don't know. We're gonna throw flat backhand shot. It is a pretty intense right to left, so if I throw them flat and they're going to turn, they might overturn, and if I throw them on hyzer, they might just fade out early. So I'm going to try to put them as flat as possible and pray that the wind doesn't carry it. You saw the tiny little bit of a turn. It just kicked it on an Anheuser, and then the wind coming from the right kept it low. This disc, the General, shouldn't do that. But it might. That was a pretty respectable flip up to flat. I threw it pretty flat, touch of hyzer, but it stayed at flat for a while. Now as we get from this Destroyer, this is just a stock Halo Star Destroyer. I think this is going to be both more flippy and more stable, but with the crosswind, the more flippy might come into play more than the more stable. Nope, it's domey, so it's gonna just barely flip up and then fade out. We have what would seem to be more overstable discs. We have what would seem to be more overstable plastics. We have specialty stamps from a Flex Master. And a stock Halo Star is more stable? Yeah. There's something to destroyers, and it's something about that upper lip that mimicking an overstable disc while being a little bit straighter makes it go both farther and farther lift. I don't know why all of that works. If the reasons I haven't explained, don't explain it. I don't know what's gonna happen here. All right, probably just gonna go through one more. The wind is just a little bit too weird today. It's being very unpredictable. All right, we're gonna try to go back to max distance here. Give them a bit of a flex. We're gonna throw the General, the Raider, and the Calvin Heinberg Halo Star Destroyer. This is the most overstable Halo Star Destroyer I have, so I think it might be similar to the General. With the tailwind, I think the Raider could be somewhat comparable as well. But I think as far as maybe it's a 13 speed, but this Raider flies a good bit more like my Mayhem than like a Destroyer. So while people might say that the Raider is the Destroyer clone or the Destroyer replacement, you're probably going to get more Destroyer style flights out of the Saki Bomb General, whereas the Raider just seems, well, I guess maybe with as much variety and as many Raiders as have been made over the years, you might get Destroyer style variety, but I don't know if you're ever going to get a Raider that is as overstable as a Destroyer. Let's go Destroyer first. Bit of a crushing tailwind, so let's give it some flex. Max distance rip. Yeah, that was on an aggressive amount of anhyzer, and it stabled out very fast. Let's go with the General now, because I think these two are going to play the most similar. Yeah, so I do think that the General is going to be more like your stable Destroyer. The Raider might be a good straight to slightly understable Destroyer, but I don't know if the Raider's ever going to truly be that overstable. See what I mean? It's probably a little bit more akin to the way this Cloudbreaker flies, where it's just, it has the parting line, but it doesn't have the rest of the wing shape. So while you can set them on a counter and you can line up the parting lines and they can be exactly identical, because these don't have that extra little hump up on the front of the nose, they're not mimicking more overstability while they have that same parting line. They have that parting line, but they're only that parting line. So the Destroyer, the PD2, the PD, a lot of those older runs of discs, those older designs, older molds seem to function more on that principle, which really helps them get more distance and more stability, whereas the newer stuff just doesn't have it. I mean, I threw that flat. It's not the same thing. It's nowhere close to the same thing, and I don't think it ever will quite be the same thing. Hopefully you guys enjoy content like this. If so, please make sure to like the video. If you want to see new stuff, make sure to comment all of that down below. Please make sure to subscribe. It helps you guys out with these subscriber-only giveaways. And if you want to be automatically entered into monthly giveaways, check out the memberships. Until next time, see you out on the course.